Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our April Common Sense Parenting Third Thursday chat. My name is Gabby, joined here with Bridget Barnes, who is our Common Sense Parenting expert. How are you doing today, Bridget?
Great, Gabby. Thanks for asking. And we're celebrating Diversity Month. Wow, that's really great.
Yeah. So you're exactly correct on that. It is Celebrate Diversity Month. So because of that, today's topic is talking to kids about race, gender, and identity. So definitely a pretty big and important topic. So if you're watching with us live and you have a question for Bridget related to this topic, feel free to leave it in the comment section of this video and we'll get it answered. And please also make sure you like this video and share it so other parents can access this important information. Okay, so like I said, it's fitting. It's Celebrate Diversity Month. What does it mean, Bridget, to celebrate diversity, and how can we teach our kids to do so?
Well, for me, I'm older than you, Gabby. I'm very old. And 20 years ago or more, there wasn't anything
Right.
such as a celebrate diversity month at all. So just being able to share history with kids and tell them, where we've come from, as a country and how much we've grown and how they can continue that legacy to move forward is one way. Just telling your story and letting them tell their stories too, because kids have stories of what's going on with them. I think sometimes we start talking about things, Gabby, before we even define them. So really having kids like sit down and define what is inclusion, what is exclusion, where do you see it in your daily life, and getting them to start thinking about that because sometimes it's so interwoven in our daily life we don't even notice it. Just
Yeah.
in like a clothing store, there's clothing stores that really kind of cater to a certain look, a certain type, a certain, and so it kind of seeps into our daily life without us even recognizing it. And so just becoming more aware, defining those things, and just kind of really talking about them, I think brings that up.
Definitely. And I love what you said too of defining terms because some younger kids, they don't even know what diversity means. When they say, Mom, what is diversity when you're saying it's Celebrate Diversity Month? So starting there for sure and just defining and then going into, oh, we see this at school, we see this at the grocery store, we see it here can help it make a lot more sense to kids. So that's great advice. Okay, so children are born without bias, right? So, how can we as parents model attitudes of inclusion and acceptance towards all so that our children don't observe and learn racism, bigotry, and judgment from us starting within our home?
Okay, Gabby, start with the big
That's a
question.
loaded question. I was thinking of these questions. I was like, I don't know how to word this, shorter because it's so much to talk about.
Yeah, well, I think it is not a one-off conversation. It's a process. It's an ongoing open conversation that you have with kids about what this means, what are attitudes and inclusion and acceptance, how do we, make these judgments about people, why do we do it, where does bigotry come from and racism, and really having honest conversations, and then just becoming more conscious of things that we kind of take for granted or that we do that we don't even recognize that we're doing that might exclude people or thoughts or beliefs, and just slowing down a little bit. And so I use this little thing, this little ball here. And
Yeah.
this is good to use if you're like in a car and you're driving in horrible traffic. And so you just squeeze it a couple of times before you let words come out of your mouth. Because kids are watching, right? They're watching us all the time and they're learning not by what we always tell them to do, but what we're doing.
Mhm.
So the simple answer to that is parents modeling the behaviors they want to teach their kids. And that's the best way for them to learn about what our attitudes and our beliefs, because they're going to repeat those things, unfortunate but true. And so unless we change ourselves first, I don't think our kids are going to really buy into that.
Definitely. Yeah, and there's so many good resources online, just as you mentioned at the beginning in this day and age. It's really never been easier to learn about unconscious bias and all those related things that, like you said, 20 years ago we might not have had. And Boys Town does a really great job, especially, as an employee, they put out annual trainings to help us stay on top of that, which I definitely appreciate. So it starts with us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, if you're watching live and you have questions related to this topic, please feel free to leave them in the comment section because I know we can get pretty in depth. So, okay, so the next one is, how can parents talk to children about racism, homophobia, and other attitudes of hate when they see or hear about it on the news, at school, on the internet, etc.?
Well, starting right there on the news, in their music, talk shows, whatever, whenever it appears, there's the opportunity. Whether we're going to face that and be confident and brave that we can have that conversation is really up to us. And just really being honest and open with kids. You're not going to have all the answers. No one does.
Mm-hmm.
But being willing to have the conversation is the first step in the right direction. So just I think when parents talk to kids, we tend to fall into the habit of lecturing them.
Mm-hmm.
And we really want to really kind of take the position of letting our kids lead that conversation and listen to what they're saying to us. And then that's going to help you as a parent know what should the conversation, what is age appropriate, what is appropriate for this particular child based on what they're saying to me and what they're sharing with me, or the questions that they have versus what I want to tell them about this particular topic. So listening is the key, and letting your kid lead, looking at, what they're listening to, is another key to be able to have those topics about these different issues that they're going to be faced with. They're going to be faced with racism and homophobia and exclusion, and it goes on and on.
Yeah.
But that, is just part of living, and which is okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah. So, when we talk to kids about those topics you just listed, as well as race, gender, and identity, how do we explain aspects to them in an age appropriate manner?
Well, allowing children to set the table of for conversation, I like to put it. Sometimes don't try to be too surprised by the words that they use when they talk to you about things. You're like, okay, and then kind of talk to them about what does that word mean and how can we find another word for that, or here's maybe a more appropriate word to use. How would you feel if someone used that word to you, or what is a word that might be used against you? How would you feel if that happened? So getting them to feel, take the perspective of others. Sometimes developmentally children might lag a little bit behind, and especially if they've been very close as far as their group, it's been very tight, it's their neighborhood, there's their school, it's where they are, and so they don't always have a lot of inclusion depending on where they're living, and
Yeah.
rightfully so getting them to kind of open up to see that there are other people, and parents not being afraid to ask the experts. Like you said, Boys Town
Yeah.
has this wealth of, you can ask. They actually have a tab that says ask the experts. You push on it and ask that question. Or a 24-hour, 7-day a week hotline where you can call someone and ask them some questions that maybe you don't have all the answers to, and they can lead you to that. You can download our videos, our articles, just everything is up there. And like you said, the internet has lots of things. I would just say to people, trust where you're getting information from on the internet. I trust that Boys Town has researchers and professionals who are really looking at the information and getting the best information possible to put up on our site. I can't say that's always the case with everyone who considers themselves an expert that put up information. So really be careful about where you're getting your information, and get lots of information and then test it out based on what you're getting. Like, I can't really say that's the fact because I can't prove it anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's definitely a message we want to reiterate during this chat is we know that this topic, your kids are going to ask questions. You might not always know the answer, and that's totally okay because, like Bridget mentioned, we do have our expert submission box on our website where you can ask us and we can help you along the way, and just know that it's okay to not always have the answer because you can find it. So that's great. So, building on that question, in turn, how can parents and family members teach love and encourage youth to love and accept those who are different from them?
Well, I think again, it's by your own example and talking to kids about what love is and what it looks like to them. I love to use art and, find music and talk to them about whatever subject. But love is, it's just in everything. You can find that word everywhere, but what does it really mean is a bigger question for kids. And then if I could just share with you a quick little story, I think a little love story, I think. So one day, my husband and I and our two children were walking down the street, and a man was coming toward us who was homeless. And he looked really disheveled. And my children looked initially, because they were about 2 and 3, they looked a
Yeah.
little afraid initially. um, and my husband, we kind of walked past, and then my husband stopped and went back to him, gave him some money, shook his hand, told him, this is where you can find this or that. And the man thanked him very much. And then we walked on to whatever activity we were going to do. Years later, my son remembered that behavior of my husband, and it stayed with him. About that looked like love to him, that my husband loved someone that he didn't even know. And I really feel like that when you can love somebody you don't even know, that you can make a judgment about just by looking at them and want to run away from, but you don't, that you love through that. That's what I consider to be love. And by showing that, I think it just showed me that stayed with my son. That example stayed with him more than anything we had ever tried to teach him or tell him.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially for him being so young, for that to stick with
Mhm,
him definitely proves it's a strong
mhm.
testimony of how to teach love. And I love what you said too about you don't always have to sit down and say, let's talk about, race and gender and celebrating diversity. And then the kids are like, oh, here goes mom preaching again. But just showing it, in your day to day life, I think is a great teachable moment. So I'm glad you could share that.
Yeah, especially if you say, let me teach you about diversity, and you go out and live another kind of life, kids are going to
Yes.
think, that's not accurate. That's not real life.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. They're always watching.
Hmm.
Okay, so what advice building on that do you have for parents on talking to their kids about gender and identity?
Well, I think there's so many really good movies out in regards to gender and identity, that watching a movie might be a way to talk to kids about gender and identity, allowing them to, again, have that open door. It is not a one off conversation. So just by letting kids know that they can come back to you as they learn and grow and experience things or be exposed to things, that they can have that conversation with you. So you really want to make sure that you don't come off with judgmental statements, or that you label or say anything harmful or hurtful about certain issues, that you just kind of keep an open conversation and hear them, and try to guide them as best you can. And if you don't feel like you have the skill set, again, ask someone. It never hurts to ask. You are made stronger by asking for help, and there's plenty of people, whether it's in your church or your school or a counselor or a boys town, whoever that you feel might be able to assist you. Because again, we don't have all the answers, but we need to be willing to look for them.
Yeah. So we have a few more questions on our list of discussion questions. So if you are watching live and you have a question for Bridget, now would be the time to comment it so we can get it answered. And if you are not watching live, if you're watching later after this video is saved on our page, or you're watching on YouTube, and you have a question, feel free to either comment below or message our page, and I'm happy to facilitate some Q&A between you and Bridget. Okay, so how can parents expand their child's knowledge of different cultures so we can teach them to accept others who don't look, act, or talk like them?
Well, I think some fun ways to do this might be, music, art, food, are good places to start. Just mixing it up, not just always having the same thing you always had, but try something new. Go out, try some new food, go to an art show where you see some different art or listen to some music. You might not like it, and you won't be buying, but I've been exposed to every kind of music. I bought music, Led Zeppelin to
Yeah.
country to rock and R&B. So I like it all if that, if the song reaches me. And so be open to that and not say, I'm only going to do this one thing. Museums are a great place to learn about cultures and to ask questions of the people who are there. Conferences and fairs are a really wonderful place to learn about culture where people share with you whatever necklace or tapestry or whatever that they have that kind of talks about their culture, and then they begin to talk about themselves and where they're from, and so you'll get to meet a lot of different people. Maybe celebrating different holidays from your own. Someone invites you to a Passover meal, go to that, or talk to someone about Ramadan, or go to a German fest, whatever the case may be. It will be a fun way to begin to learn. I think for me, the best way that I learned about other cultures was just traveling.
Yeah.
When you immerse yourself in a community, you'll really find that that community is much like your own. Maybe the food is different and the people are speaking another language, but it really is quite similar in the joy of learning about a different culture. So here we're in the United States, a very diverse country. You don't have to go far to find another culture in this country. And so just get in your car or walk down the street or whatever the case may be, and just learn and be open to that.
Yeah, and that you can make it so fun. Even, Boys Town's headquarters is near Omaha, Nebraska, and even within Omaha, going from west to east and north and south, it's all so different, and there's so many things you could do. So, totally would be a fun Saturday. One Saturday a month, maybe with your family, dedicated to trying a new restaurant, a new church, a new, whatever it may be, just to have those experiences.
And my sister, who's kind of the historian of my family, and I don't know if you have one of those persons in your family who's kind of the family historian, but she does whole genealogy of our family, and so some of us have actually taken trips to the parts of the country that our ancestors have lived in, and kind of trek that. It's kind of like a little trek, like where did we start at and where did we go and who lived here, and it's really neat to do that across the country because you can see how vast and how different it is. And how did we end up in Montana? Why were
Right?
you know? So different things, come out when you travel and learn about not only yourself but about your community and your country. So yeah, travel is a good way to start if you have the opportunity and our gas prices go down.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, I know we already listed some of them, but what other resources does Boys Town Parenting offer to help parents talk to their kids about race, gender, and identity?
I think a really cool site that is very underused, Your Life, Your Voice. Good grief. I love this web page because it has everything for kids. It is, the kids can text and talk to other kids or talk to an expert. They can talk about diversity or feeling excluded online, or find articles or downloads there. I wish my kids would have had that when they were younger. So if you're not taking advantage of that site, please do, because you don't have to look very far for that conversation. Your kid can go up there and have that conversation or talk to an expert. I think that's really a cool site. Definitely the Boys Town webpage for parents, parenting.org, has a
Mhm.
lot of really cool articles. You just have to put in the search engine and it will come up with all kinds of things on that. I love, love, love the Boys Town Press because they have so many either subtly inclusive stories or very overt, open about diversity that they have out there. Please go up, and it's for almost every age group. So you can go up there and find something for any age group. And so just getting a book for your kid, and they're not very expensive, I would just invest in that, because when you can do that while they're young, when you can do that while they're willing to listen, you can really give them a new lease on seeing the world differently. So why not?
Yeah, why not? It's easy. So we have those resources that Bridget just mentioned linked in the comments section of this video, so you can go ahead and check them out after this is over. Okay, just a couple more questions here. I have linked above this video our Common Sense Parenting Find a Class link. So could you talk a little bit about what upcoming Common Sense Parenting classes are being offered?
So we have several classes that are already going for Spanish speaking parents, Korean parents, Arabic speaking parents. So we have a diverse class, but we also have classes for any parent who wants to come, that are going to start here in May. So you would just go up to our webpage and, go to boystown.org, push on parenting. You go to Nebraska and put your zip code in there, and there you go. All the classes will come tumbling down, and you just pick the one you want, whatever the topic is. We have classes for parents of school-age children, classes for parents of toddlers and preschoolers. We have a school success class. We are beginning to serve parents who are going through divorce, the basic level course. So if you're interested in that, so just lots of classes, too many for me to name here today, but definitely go up and visit us. And if you have questions, feel free to email us or call us, and we'll return your call.
Great. Okay, lastly, I always save the big question for last, Bridget. So during Celebrate Diversity Month, what is the most important thing that parents should take away from this discussion?
I guess I would say that in the United States, we're so diverse that we can experience this thing we're talking about, diversity and inclusion, or we can decide not to. But we have to be brave enough to take the first step as parents, not wait for anybody else. As parents, we can do this. Audre Lorde said, "It is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, to accept, and to celebrate those differences." And so we have the opportunity this month to celebrate diversity. So let's get out there. Let's celebrate it.
Yes, I love your enthusiasm. It's very rejuvenating. So that's great. We do have another resource linked down below, and that is our Teaching Children How to Celebrate Diversity email series. So you can get a bunch of tips sent straight to your inbox for free. So go ahead and sign up for that. And Bridget, thank you so much for your wisdom and all of your advice. It's always much appreciated.
You're welcome. See you next time, Gabby.
All
Bye,
right. See
everybody.
you next month. Bye.